Welcome to this recorded presentation on arrangements for assessment in 2021, where we'll focus on vocational qualifications. The aim of the webinar is to provide a high-level overview of the arrangements, as we aim to follow up with more sector-specific guidance and webinars later, and more focused information covering our systems, submission and quality assurance processes which support this year's arrangements. So the webinar will focus on off-qual regulated qualifications, so we'll use the terminology that they've adopted during this year. However, we will also refer to the terminology used by other regulators outside England, where similar approaches have been adopted. And we have dedicated pages on our website which outline those arrangements for you. In the presentation, we'll cover the current policy position and the arrangements for 2021 and how they differ from those in 2020. We'll also explain how vocational qualifications have been divided between three categories and how the assessment arrangements in each category differ and why. We'll cover the work we're doing with adaptations for each sector and how, where safe and permitted to do so, we're adding additional flexibility to support the delivery of teaching, learning and assessment this summer. We'll look at teacher assessed grades or tags where they are available and talk through the guidance and arrangements for these. We'll also share a timeline for those vocational qualifications in category B1 besides technicals, which are permitted to follow the tag process and outline the main steps. We'll also look briefly at the approach for appeals and finally the main sources of support and follow-up activities to follow this webinar. The Governance Directive for all qualifications was set out in a letter from Gavin Williamson to Ofqual on the 23rd of February, and we've included a link to that letter here. It outlines the government's priority being to ensure students can progress to their next stage of life wherever possible, and that there should be fairness across vocational and technical qualifications and GCSEs, AS and A-levels. Where vocational and technical qualifications, or VTQs, lead to employment, students should demonstrate the necessary occupational and professional standards such that they can safely carry out that employment. Where VTQs are used to progress to education or employment and they're unlike GCSEs, AS and A-levels, government policy is that exams and assessment continues in line with public health measures, but with alternative arrangements available for those who cannot access the assessments. To help clarify which qualifications follow which approach, qualifications have been placed into three categories, and we'll talk through these in subsequent slides. Ofqual has published a useful summary of arrangements for each qualification type in their blog on Thursday the 25th of February 2021, and we've included a link to it in this slide. They've subsequently consulted on and published a new vocational and technical qualifications contingency regulatory framework, or VCRF, on the 24th of March. The approach for vocational qualifications is to assess as normal or using published adaptations. The expectation from the Department for Education and Ofqual is that delivery of learning and training should continue during this time, and on-demand assessments can and should continue to take place safely. This applies to all Ofqual regulated qualifications, including many delivered in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's only in exceptional cases where all other options to complete assessments are not possible, and this includes using permitted adaptations or delaying assessments, should alternative arrangements such as teacher assessed grades or tags be considered. Therefore, our guidance, following government direction, has an emphasis on undertaking assessments in the usual way or using adaptations. On our nation's website, you'll see those qualifications regulated by specific regulators may use different terminology, and follow different procedures, and you can find out more about them there. So as a reminder, in 2020 the policy directive was quite different. Different mitigations were put in place for the award of assessments and qualifications. Ofqual consulted on and published their extended regulatory framework to regulate qualifications during this period. And in order to award qualifications, one of 3 mitigation approaches was agreed for each qualification. These were to delay, to adapt, or to use a centre assessed grade, or CAG. A centre assessed grade, where applicable, was a prediction of the grade or result that a student would most likely have achieved had they taken their assessment as normal between the 20th of March and the 31st of July 2020. The grade was based on available trusted evidence. Results went through a rigorous quality assurance process before being released to centres. So again, the approach in 2021 is quite different, as the expectation from the Department for Education and Ofqual is that delivery of learning and training should continue during this time, and on-demand assessments can and should take place where safe to do so. Again, it's only in exceptional circumstances where all other options to complete assessments are not possible, including using permitted adaptations or delaying assessments, should alternative arrangements such as teacher assessed grades take place. And as we said earlier, in our guidance following government direction, we have an emphasis on undertaking assessments in the usual way or using published adaptations. Also, as mentioned at the start of the presentation, our guidance applies wherever Ofqual regulated qualifications are being delivered across the United Kingdom. We're working closely with the qualification regulators and our customers in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland to ensure our guidance and processes can support learners in line with national public health guidance, and these are outlined on the Nations section of our COVID pages. So in 2021, some, but not all, externally set and marked assessments have been cancelled. For example, GCSEs, AS and A-levels, and some qualifications similar to GCSEs, AS and A-levels, for example our technical qualifications. And in March, Ofqual consulted on and published the VCRF and set out a number of categories of qualifications eligible for alternative assessment for the period from the 1st of August 2020 to the 31st of August 2021. To take account of the complex landscape, vocational qualifications have been placed into different categories according to their purpose. Category A contains qualifications with occupational skills or proficiency assessments. In Category B, there are 2 parts. B1, qualifications most similar to GCSEs, AS and A-levels, and B2, qualifications not similar to GCSEs, AS and A-levels, are mainly delivered as on-demand short courses. Ofqual's Qualification Explainer tool shows how qualifications across all AOs have been categorised. And City and Guilds has also published its own list, and we have provided a link here. You will need also to click on the red box which says Qualification List to view the list. We've also included here a useful infographic which Ofqual has produced, which outlines arrangements for each qualification type. We've added the categories below in yellow to help. We're going to focus on Category A and B1 mainly in this presentation, but we'll also talk through B2 just to make sure you're clear where they sit in the landscape. So Category A is for qualifications which assess critical occupational competence, proficiency and lead to licences of practice. For qualifications in this category, the approach is to continue where possible and to make use of agreed adaptations where possible. Where this is not possible, it may be necessary to delay assessment. Teacher assessed grades are not possible. A teacher assessment grade is not available for qualifications in this category, and we're reviewing the adaptations we are currently offering to see if we can add more flexibility to these and to support delivery and assessment. We've begun to do this for some sectors, for example looking at alternative evidence in place of evolved tests, and we'll keep you updated on any further flexibilities we add. By monitoring the adaptations pages of our COVID section of the website, you'll be able to keep an eye on any adaptations which are being added. Category B1 actually has two parts. So firstly, we'll look at the qualifications most like GCSEs, AS and A-levels, which are used for progression to further or higher study or into employment, where issuing results to learners needs to be prioritised. For City and Guilds, our technical qualifications fall into this category. These qualifications have very clear arrangements, and results will be issued using alternative evidence where exams and/or internal assessments do not take place. These will be teacher assessed grades. There's full guidance and details of the arrangements, the dates and time frames published on the website, and we have provided a link to this for you here. Category B1 also includes some vocational qualifications that support progression into employment, but need to continue to be assessed to retain their validity. So for these qualifications, centres should make use of the agreed adaptations wherever possible, and again, we're reviewing these to ensure we've provided as much flexibility as we can, but while still maintaining the integrity of the qualifications. Teacher assessed grades is an option in some cases, but should be used as a last resort. We've published guidance to support this on our COVID pages and also included a link here for you too. Category B2 is for those qualifications which are important for progression but are different from GCSEs, AS and A-levels, and mainly delivered as on-demand short courses. These also have a very clear approach. These assessments should continue remotely or in person where it is safe to do so and in compliance with public health requirements. We will continue to offer them on paper, on screen and on demand as we usually do. Centres should make use of agreed adaptations wherever possible, and we've recently added additional adaptations for ESOL and functional skills specifically to support with entry level. Where a learner is unable to access the assessment live, either remotely or in person, centres can request teacher assessed grades where a learner meets the eligibility criteria. And we have produced a guidance, timeline and other materials on our website and have already opened our second submission window for centres wishing to request a teacher assessed grade for any learners. Where we offer similar qualifications outside of England, for example essential skills, government directives and regulators have made clear the approach, and terminology varies too. So rather than teacher assessed grades, it's centre determined grades. We have added links to that separate guidance here to support you, and we're also holding separate webinars to go through the guidance and detail separately. So please monitor the COVID pages for these dates. So I mentioned earlier that we have a series of adaptation sector guides, and these were published earlier this academic year but have been kept under review. Centres need to inform City and Guilds of their intention to apply these adaptations and let us know if these prove challenging to apply. As a result of feedback, we have kept them under review and continue to update them through the year. There's also a generic guide which supports these and also explains our overall approach. Where possible, arrangements have been developed and agreed across awarding organisations and often with the input of sector or professional bodies to ensure consistency of approach. Adaptations have been kept under review and have recently been updated again for some sectors where additional flexibilities have been added, particularly in relation to the assessment of knowledge and understanding. So please ensure you're signed up for notifications, as that's how we'll keep you informed of changes. So just to summarise then, where teacher assessed grades can and can't be applied and why. And firstly, for our technicals, core maths and extended project qualifications. Dated examinations have been cancelled for the spring and summer 2021 series following a ministerial directive, and therefore all eligible candidates will be required to have result determined by teacher assessed grade. Centres will use their professional judgment to determine grades, supported by sources of trusted, sufficient, relevant and authenticated evidence. For internal assessment, such as the synoptic assignments for our Key Stage 5 technical certificates and tech levels, these assessments should continue to be taken as normal or via the published adaptations where it is safe to do so. And where this cannot happen, teacher assessed grades may be used where there is sufficient evidence to do so. If there is not sufficient evidence of occupational skills, then they may need to be delayed. And secondly, for our other vocational qualifications also used for progression. Where teacher assessed grades are permitted for other qualifications, this will be as a last resort. So centres will be required to confirm the eligibility of candidates and provide evidence of how the results were determined. For some qualifications in category B2, for example functional skills and ESOL, centres must also be able to demonstrate a candidate's eligibility for TAG. This is where a candidate is not able to access the assessment and a teacher assessed grade is required to allow progression. All teacher assessed grades will be subject to internal quality assurance and external quality assurance by City and Guilds. So just a few additional points and reminders about teacher assessed grades. Firstly, and again, teacher assessed grades are different from centre assessed grades which were applied as a mitigation in 2021. A teacher assessed grade is not a predicted grade. It is a grade or result judgment based on a learner being ready for assessment, which is supported by trusted, sufficient, relevant and authenticated evidence which demonstrates this. Where teacher assessed grades are permitted, detailed guidance on the teacher assessed grades process, the types of trusted, sufficient, relevant and authenticated evidence and any related quality assurance are available on our COVID-19 web pages. Internal quality assurance within the centre, including effective standardisation of marking and grading judgments, will be vital to supporting the validity of the process. And as such, we will provide guidance for centres supporting this and will monitor it as part of our external quality assurance activities. City and Guilds will sample the evidence used by a range of centres prior to releasing results, and all evidence must be retained for 12 months. For centres wishing to apply teacher assessed grades for qualifications in category B1, we have provided detailed guidance and a timeline to follow. We've suggested timelines and guidance for qualifications using teacher assessed grades for technicals and for those in category B2, and these are separate documents also available on our website. This slide summarises the timeline for teacher assessed grades for B1 vocational qualifications, and there's also a link to the website version of the document in red at the bottom left hand corner. You'll notice two submission windows. The 1st of June to the 18th of June, is a priority window restricted to students who are due to complete their qualification by the 31st of August. So this window ensures results can be processed by the published dates in August. The second, the 21st of June to the 31st of August, is for remaining students. You'll also notice results dates for entry, level 1 and level 2, Wednesday the 11th of August, and for level 3, Monday the 9th of August. Results will be published on the walled garden on these dates, and these results are subject to correct teacher assessed grade submissions in window 1. You'll also notice that we have a dedicated quality team to support this process, and there's also a dedicated quality team support inbox and contact number for you to use should you need any additional help. With relation to appeals, the process for teacher assessment grades allows candidates to appeal their grade. So if a candidate believes they have not received the right grade, they may ask their centre to check if there was an error. If the candidate is unhappy with the outcome of the centre's review, they can appeal to City and Guilds. The centre must make the application for the candidate. If the centre identifies an error, they should submit the revised result to City and Guilds. And for missing results, centres should submit it in the next window, and it will be subject to quality assurance. We will publish specific guidance relating to the appeals process as soon as possible. For adapted assessment, centres should use the standard appeals documents which are available on our dedicated page, and we include a link to that here. We hope this has provided a useful overview, but are conscious that you'll have further questions. We'll publish responses to all the webinar questions in a separate FAQ document as soon as possible and publish these to the vocational qualifications section of our COVID pages. You're also always welcome to contact our customer services and quality teams and your technical advisors for further support. The technical advisors will also be launching follow-up subject-specific webinars, and you'll be able to find these also on the vocational qualifications section of the COVID pages under the red window support webinars. We also hope to add further guidance specifically for those working in quality and exam teams who are also involved in the process as soon as possible. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the recorded presentation. Again, we fully recognise your challenges and are working as quickly as we can to ensure that you have as much flexibility and support as we can provide you with. But please do get in touch with any further queries. Many thanks.